Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Show, where I have a pleasure to host and to chat with, with people that you know from LinkedIn, from Twitter, from Facebook, from the books they are writing, from anywhere, basically, with the people that are doing funky marketing, doing good job for themselves or for other people. And, we get deeper into some of the topics. Today, we're going to get deeper into content for the fast-growing B2B companies. We're going to go deeper into the SEO topic that we don't talk about much here on the podcast. So I'm happy to maybe disagree on something with my today's guest. So join me in welcoming, I'm gonna try to pronounce the name because I didn't ask you, and I usually do it like Maeva Cifuentes.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's good. Cool.
Thanks for having. I'm gonna try Nemanja.
Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to finally be on the Funky Marketing Show. This is very exciting.
Yeah, it was a long time coming. It's interesting because I'm using this recording to kind of live stream it, and chat with people and have it like more relaxed. And then we publish it as an episode on the podcast. Actually.
Okay. Yeah. So is this live right now?
Yeah, we are live.
It's like, hey, nice to meet you. Okay, we're going live. No, I'm happy. I like it.
Yeah. It's usually, I used to create that can be like a good information for somebody that wants to do it. Like I used to create events on LinkedIn and then, do the live stream. But I figure out that I get less people to watch episodes when I create the event than when I just jump in and do live.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's about notifications or something else, but that's what I'm seeing.
So you got to follow the data.
Yeah, or the feeling. It's not that big amount of data. So yeah, it's usually how it goes. So tell me one thing for the start. So tell me, how did you end up in this agency game, content, SEO, and all those stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. It was a natural progression, really. I started as a freelancer for many years. I was actually a freelance translator, translating marketing content. Initially, also a lot of legal stuff. And then I went into marketing. I thought it was more creative. I preferred to work with marketers than lawyers. And I was translating a lot of content, website copy, and that kind of stuff. And I felt a little bit farther away from the strategic side. I didn't really know what impact it was having on the business. So with a goal to get closer to that, as well as diversifying my income as a freelancer, I started becoming a copywriter as well. I had clients who were asking me, oh, you're translating. Can you also just write it from scratch? I said, yeah, why not? So I started doing that. So I was doing that kind of freelancing for about 10 years. Slowly that moved into SEO because I remember I was writing blog posts very regularly for this client. It was my first blog content writing client. And at one point I was asking myself, what is the purpose of me writing all of these blog posts? They're giving me these topics and I'm writing about them, but why? So I started asking them, what's the reason that we're doing this? You're paying me every month. I'm writing these things. Is it bringing you anything? Turns out it wasn't, because there was, like they didn't really know either why they were writing it. Somebody said we got to write content because that's what everybody's doing. So they just hired a writer. So I was doing that and I said, Yeah, that's what I thought, because I don't understand how all of these topics, I don't understand who's distributing them. Maybe you're posting them on Facebook or whatever. So I started learning more about SEO to offer this client that service. Then I started my own blog about freelancing and did a lot of SEO stuff there. It grew pretty quickly, got a lot of people on the email list, and I started using that to experiment. Then it basically grew from there. And then at one point, I didn't want to do the writing anymore. So I got a writer to help me. And then I got a project manager to help manage the writer. And then it basically just turned into, I just kept adding on people. The first year of the agency, or I decided to give the company a name, Flying Cat Marketing. Then I got my project manager on. We were two for about 6 months. I was by myself 6 months. I had her for another 6 months. And then this year, we've gone up to 11 people by the end of this year. So
Nice.
that's the core team, but we do also have a network of freelancers that are working with us, and it happened pretty naturally, really.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and I'm hearing lots of stuff that I also noticed. Like I also started. I mean, when I first got into the agency, I knew lots of stuff related to the social media, to the marketing in general, but I knew zero about SEO. And that is the first, like they gave me this course, or two of them, about keyword research, about on-site SEO, about those kind of things. And it was like, I remember everybody in the company were like, yo, we're doing keyword research, like all of us needs to be on the call. And then I'm like watching, learning, and it was like something nobody wanted to do. It wasn't like something that is pleasurable to do. It was a hard work. You need to dig deep and to do actually the real
Yeah.
research. And I was like, okay, but then it becomes interesting because you can play music with that, and you can just go with the flow
Hmm.
and do something. And it was my first freelancing job was doing the keyword research and content strategy for another company. So it's kind of interesting, and something that I'm still doing from time to time. But like I was doing yesterday the on site for a client because I needed to do it. The agency they hired didn't do it, so I was like, okay, it's like it won't take me much to
Yeah.
do it, but it becomes really important thing, especially when you're working with clients that depends on their ranking. Especially if we're talking about Google Maps, about, I don't know, we were working with um, auto repair shops. So it's like if you're not in the first three on search, and especially in first four on Google Maps, you get zero calls,
Yeah.
like literally zero, because people are driving. It's the traffic is crazy, and they call right from the cars.
Yeah.
And then it becomes highly important what you do over there. And also from the searches, we're going to talk about it. But one thing you mentioned is, and I want to start with that, is knowing what you're going to do with the content and why you are writing it. That's actually the situation that you explained. Like, you don't know why you are writing, they don't know why you're writing. I think that was the case with majority of B2B companies, not only tech but also the others. Because like when I started talking with them, like I see they have content on the website that nobody has ever seen, and it was a good content in most cases. Okay, maybe stuff with keywords, those kind of stuff, it needed a little bit of soul, but like it was a content that we can use to kind of personalize it for their profiles on LinkedIn and use it to distribute it over there. And like the customers that they wanted to get, they weren't on Google, they were on different places.
Hmm.
So basically, they needed to repurpose the content and distribute it somewhere else, but they didn't know why they are writing it in the first place. So they kind of lost the traction. Why are we doing this? So
Yeah.
tell me a couple of reasons why we are actually writing blog posts or articles or content in general. So what can be the reasons?
Well, there can be a lot of reasons. And again, it depends on how you plan to distribute it, or maybe that's a result of the reason. All things that you need to consider. Um, there can be the reason of needing to show thought leadership, especially in B2B. I'm trying to find a way to say this that's not so cliche and what everybody's hearing all the time on LinkedIn, which is kind of hard, but you still have to keep saying it. A lot of decision makers in B2B aren't the only decision makers. They always have to convince somebody else when they're buying something in B2B. So
Yes.
if you come to them and say, hey, I've decided to go with this company, and they're going to say, oh, great, I've heard of them before, you're that much closer to making the sale. If they say, who's that? I don't know anything about this or what they're about, you're that much farther away from making the sale. So maybe some of these companies aren't on Google, like you say, but everybody's on Google for something. They're always going to be trying to solve some sort of problem. So if you can capture them at any possible part of the user journey, any of the decision makers or the influencers, it starts to build the brand. You start to answer questions. You start to be helpful. So there's that. There's being found at every part of the journey, helping to get the brand in people's heads in a educational and supportive way in what they need to do in their job roles. That's probably the most important thing, because that's, the basis of demand generation today, I would say, is educating people. If you are going to be distributing through SEO, then it's really about answering questions, identifying queries, really building a page for every possible search intent that could be around your product or your service. But you really could benefit from creating other kinds of content that you distribute through paid social, through personal social, that you repurpose into small social media bits, like you were just saying you do for your clients. I think that content should be repurposed across as many channels as possible. And that doesn't mean the same content. If you're going to write a best HubSpot alternatives piece and your HubSpot, you don't necessarily need to share that. That's not a thought leadership. That's not something that needs to get distributed through social. And that's why you need to know the purpose of it. The purpose of that kind of piece is for people who are searching for alternatives on Google. Or maybe if somebody asks in a Slack group or online, hey, do you guys know any alternatives for this? Then you have a piece to share with them. Those are the only two purposes for that kind of piece. And you need to know that when you decide how to distribute it. Other reasons for content is going to be generating demand, which is kind of the same as the first one, but the first one is brand awareness. The second one is generating demand. And then there's also capturing demand. And that's going to be the bottom of the funnel content that you're creating on search. Yeah. There's a lot of other reasons. Attracting talent is also a big one today, showing your culture so that people want to come and work for your company. There are companies that have very specific goals in terms of traffic that they want to reach, because their website is already converting very well. So they need to scale it because they need to increase the number of conversions that are coming in. So if they already know that it's working, then they just need to scale what they're already doing. And content plays a huge role in that as well.
Yeah, I saw that companies making that mistakes a lot when they choose how they're gonna come up with content, and they say, okay, we have these keywords that lots of people are searching for. We're gonna create content around that, and and now we wait and we look at the results, and it seems like less than 3% of those people are converting into paid users, because those weren't specific people.
Yeah.
They were just here for the education. You went a lot outside of your niche. You went wide, and then you didn't get those people. But it's okay to start with that sometimes, right? It's okay to maybe start
Not too
wide.
wide.
Yeah.
There's some really who are like,
important.
oh, this keyword gets a lot of traffic, and they're a B2B sales platform, and the keyword is how to be productive in life. It says, I think you've gone a little too far away.
That can be tricky.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to know the goal and work your way backwards from that. If you say, I have this KPI, the overall business has this KPI, OKR, whatever, how do I work my way backwards to know what kind of content that I need to create based on what content already exists, how the website is already converting to whatever goal it is that I want, whatever it is I want to happen on the website. Do I need to fix that? And how quickly am I able to create all these pages that I need to create?
Yeah, so looking from the company perspective, basically you need to know what you want from content, and then to go to execution, right? I want to emphasize
Yeah.
that because lots of companies out there are not doing that. So let's just start with content, create something there. We're gonna figure out what's gonna happen with it.
But it really changes the way that you're creating content. If your only goal is the number of deliverables, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to think a lot less about all the other factors that come into play that would help you use those deliverables to give you a result that's aligned with your actual goals. If I tell you write 10 blog posts a month, and that's our goal because I've heard that content velocity is a thing that you got to publish a lot. So let's just publish 10 per month. And I don't really have a plan around it. Well, I'll succeed on that goal. That's probably doable. But like you said, then I don't have any way to connect that to, I don't know, what did I want? Leads? Did I want people coming in through word of mouth because of the content that I'm creating? Did I want people to directly convert on the website? I'm not going to be able to connect any of that to the content I'm creating if the only thing I'm focused on is the number of pieces I'm publishing per month. Especially
Yeah,
not if you're outsourcing it. If you're giving it to a freelancer or somebody in-house and you're saying this is your KPI is just deliverables, that's easy to deliver on. Doesn't mean you're going to put any call to actions in it or help anybody take the next step.
yeah, I agree. I ask you that because I want to now go and switch. So looking from the perspective of company now, knowing what they want, how do they choose the right content agency? That's
The
like
right content agency.
there are tons of them over there. Like myself talking to lots of people. Like I don't know, we talk with, for example, with Insider, and it's not a girl, it's a lady I was talking with. She told me like I talked with around 20 companies and nobody had expertise in B2B marketing and technology in those kind of things and knew how to write about those things in depth. And that's why I'm asking. So there's a huge demand for content. There are tons of companies providing the service, but how do we choose the right one for us?
Well, it's a huge challenge that a lot of companies are going through. First thing that you have to consider is what resources do you have in-house to work with this company? There are people who are having their CEO or their head of sales or somebody who has a million other responsibilities try to work with an agency, and it's not really a done for you kind of thing. They can't do that, especially in B2B. You need somebody in-house to connect, to be working very closely with the agency. So you need to think about the resources that you have. If you have content resources, that's also quite helpful as well. And you can work with an agency that just provides the strategy and the guidance, and they'll just have your content team create something that's going to be that they can still be held accountable for. Like you said, it's really hard to find an agency that understands SEO and also deeply understands whatever industry it is that they're supposed to be writing about. I think that ideally you want to find agencies that have case studies that have written about the same kind of topic that you would want them to write about, or you really have to give them access to your product marketers, to your in-house subject matter experts. They have to be accessible because then the agency, if it does this, they'll be able to work sort of as journalists, interviewing them and creating pieces out of that, but they will not be able to do it alone. So if you can't give them access to product people and subject matter experts, then it's better that you have your own content team already available to help the agency execute. So yeah, look at case studies, see if they're transparent. There's a lot of red flags when choosing an agency. I don't know if we want to go down that path right now. Because right now we're trying to see what are the good things to look for.
Yeah, so let me be like more specific. Should we choose somebody that has worked for lots of industries and has tons of writers and experience in different industry, or should we focus on somebody like yourself, like your agency that has experience, has experience also in different industries, but focuses on just one or two.
Yeah, I think it depends on how niche your industry is and how niche the users are
Mm-hmm.
that use it. For example, there are some that are very horizontal industries, horizontal B2B tools like MailChimp. I don't know if you need to be so specialized in an industry to be able to write content for a tool like MailChimp, because there's a lot of different kind of people that use it. There's a lot of different jobs to be done, which I think an agency could probably learn. However, if you have something super like, yeah, you're right. We serve hospitality technology. So a large part of our clientele is hospitality tech, travel tech. So the kind of software that hotels use or Airbnb hosts use. So they have such a specific industry, a specific way of talking about things and a specific set of problems. And even within the industry, there are so many different kind of business owners. There's the host that has one Airbnb property, or there's a property management company that owns 3,000, runs 3,000 properties, doesn't own any of them. There's a lot of different problems at hand, and it's just so particular that in that case, it's useful to work with an agency that understands that, because then they have to learn it all from scratch. So I think it depends on how specific your industry is, whether your users are very horizontal, that your users come from different industries, or if they only come from one industry. If your users can come from different industries, I think that it can be a little bit more versatile in the way that you're writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that for also for community, for social media as well. Hiring somebody who has a different look and brings a different vibe to that.
Yeah.
That can be a refreshment.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but for example, I think it might be good for a company to have like two writers with different style or with different experience. That can be a good mix.
Do you think it's good? You mean within a single company to have different writing styles?
I don't mean necessarily the styles, but people with different experience.
Yeah. Okay.
That
Different
has done
perspectives.
different. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, especially if they're working together and you can say, "Oh, I'm looking at thinking about things, taking data points and connecting different dots maybe."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that thing. And what you said, let's emphasize that as well. They need to have a style, right?
Yeah.
When somebody reads that, they say, "Uh-huh, it is that company."
Definitely. That's why style guides are, I mean, especially if you're producing a high volume of content, style guides become really important. But then again, now we're going off on a different tangent. Rather than talking about the agencies and content SEO, style guides are very important. And I think it's important to have a solidified style across the company.
Yeah. So let's go and talk about setting up the whole process and everything. What we're seeing still today, I don't know why, but it's still happening. Like lots of companies are just focusing on the keywords, not really on personas or jobs to be done or whoever they are targeting. What are the reasons they are writing the content? What are the KPIs and those kind of stuff? So from your perspective and from your experience, what do you recommend to them, and how do you do it, and how should company do it actually today?
Yeah. So I think there's, unfortunately, when people are doing keyword research and selecting keywords, they really love going for keywords that have the highest search volume on Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever. They say, "Oh, I want this one because we're going to get a lot of." They think that search volume means they're going to get a lot of traffic. A higher search volume means they're going to get a lot of higher traffic, which is false. Um, it does not mean that. Actually, sometimes it might mean the opposite of that. Actually, it means
Mm-hmm.
the higher the reported search volume, the less traffic you're going to get from it. And the reason for that, I mean, there are a lot of reasons for that, but where do I start? First of all, I can talk about a case study. So a lot of people are going to be going for those high volume keywords. So they end up being slightly more difficult. It takes longer, more months to be able to rank for those keywords. So you get a lot fewer clicks over time. Whereas if you go for zero search or lower volume keywords, you're going to get a lot more clicks because those aren't the only keywords that you're going to end up ranking for. You're going to end up ranking for a lot of different variations of that keyword. And because it's so low search volume and so specific, it's going to be a lot less competitive most of the time, and you're going to rank a lot faster for it. We experimented with this recently, and we tried a couple of zero search volume keywords, and we ended up, we optimized a page for 1 zero volume search term. So that means it was reported on Ahrefs. We use Ahrefs to have that zero people search for this every month. We ended up getting 1,600 clicks per month for that page because it ranked in the top 3 very quickly. And another, within the same topic cluster, we were experimenting this within a single topic cluster. So another very, very similar piece, but that had a reported search volume of 1,200 per month, published at the same time, ended up getting 11 clicks. Why? Because that one was still not ranking in the top 3 because it was a lot more competitive of a page because everybody was trying to rank for that because of the higher search volume. So it actually had the opposite effect of the reported search volume. Whereas I could have spent all my resources trying to get lower volume pages that would actually get me to rank faster for more keywords, which is ultimately at the end of the day how you're going to win. If your page ranks for way more keywords, you're going to do better than a page that's ranking for fewer keywords. So imagine you put all of your resources, months and months and months of work into one keyword just because it has a high search volume. And then if you ever do make it to the top after you work so hard for it, everybody else is tracking that keyword like crazy. And they're fighting you for it. So then you spend resources again going back and forth trying to capture that ranking again from the other person, where this whole time you could have just been creating a ton of pages for low volume keywords, and you'll probably have a lot more and better traffic at the end of the day. So instead of looking at search volume as a way to decide what kind of keywords you're choosing, I think it's more important to look at the intent. How specific is this? How close is this to what I want to be talking about? How much does this relate to my user? And the journey, the various journeys that they go through before they purchase, while they're purchasing, and after they purchase. And how can we tie it all together into different topic clusters and cover as much of the topic as possible across the whole website?
How do you usually create the clusters and everything? I'm interested because lots of different agencies are doing it differently.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just one pillar article and two that supports him. Sometimes it's two and then it's three that supports him. So like a cluster of 5 or something else. What's your approach?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on the cluster because I think some clusters will have a lot more subtopics than others. And it depends on what's already on the website, what the website already has going. If it's newer, I would take a different approach than if they're already quite advanced. So some pages might just need a bunch of different landing pages with like feature, use case, vertical, industry combos. So, Funky Marketing does demand gen for small businesses. Funky Marketing does demand gen for healthcare. Funky Marketing does demand gen for construction workers. I don't know. But all of these kind of different permutations, those are good to create a lot of those kind of landing pages, which aren't blog posts. They're actually landing pages most of the time, depending on what the search intent ends up being. So that's always something that I look at for opportunities for those. Then I look at the cluster that's going to be the quickest win. So either one that's going to be the fastest that we can rank for, or the one that's going to be driving the most revenue quicker. And then from there, I usually start with bottom of the funnel. I always do a combo of like, okay, this month we're going to do X
Mm-hmm.
amount of bottom of the funnel. Then we'll do a couple of mid funnels and maybe one top funnel. And then I mix around how easy it is to rank for each keyword. My goal is always, what can I rank for fastest, not what has the highest search volume.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually an approach that you're using, as you are entering or starting marketing in a company.
Yeah.
Usually that's the one, because the board or the CEO is demanding you to get the results short term, and you know that you need to build stuff long term, so you need to focus on both.
Yeah. Yeah, you really can have a balanced approach to it. If you look at it from the long term and say, if you look at it like building a house, okay, I need to build my house. Here's my what are they called? The little models, homes or design, blueprint, whatever. This is where I'm going to need to get to. Well, I have to build my foundations. I'm going to be building my foundations here. But maybe I can also go and build my wall or think about the decoration later that I'm going to put into it. But you just go brick by brick and you build up your asset, which is going to be an investment at the end of the day. So looking at it long term. But yeah, if you need to get some quick returns, you can with some little wins, as long as that's not the only thing that you're relying on and the only metric that you're looking at. And as long as that's not the only thing that's driving the whole strategy, you can put those on the side as well and add them onto sorry, there's a bug flying in front of me.
Well said. I like that, and it's important to to emphasize and repeat those things, because if you are focusing just on the short term, then you end up with what I say, like less 3% of them are
Yeah.
converting to the paid users, but you have the traffic.
Yeah.
So when you try to lower the traffic and actually get better articles that will rank for those that will convert, then like the board says, why do we have traffic was like 20,000 people, why do we have now 15?
Yeah.
And then like, that's a minus. But and then you need to go into explaining what does it mean and why it is like that. And if you are running towards investment, that can be a huge pain. I don't want to say where, but that's something you
Yeah.
need to take into consider.
If you are expected to prove month over month growth at the beginning of a startup, if you're early stage, then it's hard to get buy-in.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned a house and everything. Let's talk about content operations. So what do we need to kind of bring inside to set up everything so we can actually perform?
Yes, that's the question. So I think to be able to do things at scale, it's so important. It's so vital to have some operations in place. The same way you'd have marketing ops, rev ops, it's important to have what you can automate, be automated, have everything organized really well, and make it really, really, really easy to see what each piece of content needs in order to move forward and to understand where within the calendar it is. It doesn't really matter when you publish. If you're distributing on it through SEO, you can publish at any time, but you need to know when you plan to have the piece done so that everything can be structured appropriately. There's going to be a lot of stakeholders. You can't have a very lean team. I know Zapier has grown its blog to, I don't know how many millions, and they have tens of thousands of pages published, and they're a very small team. I don't want to say anything wrong, but I think there's like 5 people on the content team. It's very small. They probably also work with some freelancers, and they probably have a lot of dynamically generated pages. But what they definitely have is a strong operational machine going on.
Yeah.
So you have your writers. Your writers aren't the only people who can be working on this, because you do need a strategist / editor. Maybe they can be the same person. And you need a project manager handling the workflow and taking things step to step. So the way I see it, these should be separate roles. There should be at least the 3, the writers, the creative, the project manager, and the strategist. I say it as if you're producing a movie, you're going to have your producer, your director, and the actors. And those roles are all very different. And they all play a very important part in moving things forward and making sure that things get done, because they all have very different responsibilities that all play an important role. So, have some kind of project management tool that helps you automate things, and have somebody who's managing that, and have it all documented so that you know exactly what's happening and when. We document, it's quite painstaking at the beginning to document all of your processes and everything that you're doing, but it becomes very, very useful as you scale. You can't really scale if you don't have that in place.
It become a necessity to know like
Yeah.
where are things at the moment. Like you're not somebody who will look after every article or every writer and everything, but when you want to go and just let me check out where we are with things, you need to have it all clearly.
Yeah. Definitely. You need to be able to look, open it up, and know exactly where everything is just by looking at it. It's not something that you can keep in your memory or with a little notepad and it helps hold everybody accountable. It helps everybody understand why things are due at a certain time. Because otherwise it's hard to get buy-in from people. They don't understand unless you can show them all on paper as well. So it's not just about keeping track of things, and it's not just about that, although that's the most important thing, but it's also just it helps hold everybody, all the stakeholders accountable.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, uh, talking about Zapier and those kind of things, we were able to write, I think it was around 50 articles. It was 5,000 words plus per month with two people and the editor. So basically, a strategist,
Really?
a writer, the editor, and Jarvis.
Okay.
So that was the
Yeah.
missing piece in the equation, because like the strategies come up with or something comes from the client. He sets everything up. He can use Jarvis or not to come up with the outlines, with those kind of things. Gives the articles that are useful as as assets to look at how they want everything to look like. Then the writer goes in, uses Jarvis, in one way or the other, but then he needs to check the facts. He needs to go through everything, because you don't know what Jarvis will give you. Like you don't know if those things are true. Actually, you need to go and check all those things up. And then of course like editor needs to go and needs to set it up in a way that you want it to be set. But it turns out to be quite a good process, because like
Yeah.
writer only writes in this case, basically.
Have you played with Jarvis before?
Yeah, we're using it for I think almost a year or something like that.
Really? I really want to get into it. I feel like it's going to be AI writing is going to become a very important part of content ops.
Yeah, definitely. It's not going to be something that will, be a replacement for a content writer.
No.
But I think content writers will have another role. They will become more like content strategists,
Mm.
and somebody who can manage different tools. Because it's not only Jarvis. I mean, okay, Jarvis now has integrations for Grammarly, for the SEO, for those kind of stuff. So it means like, okay, you can have one tool that have five others incorporated in it, or you can have five separate tools to use for that. So it's still a person managing five different tools to
Yeah.
come up with that.
It's a lot of there's probably a big learning curve, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, look, like it's become very accessible, and I think it doesn't need that much of a time. You just need somebody that has done it to just give you a shortcuts.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Jarvis, like, okay, not I'm unaffiliate, but I don't promote it here, so that's not something that goes for promoting Jarvis affiliate. But what's good is that Jarvis has done a great stuff when they started, and it's developing a community. And they have these lectures and educating people from week to week. So you have lots of use cases, lots of examples how you can use it. Everybody can create, how do they call it? Recipes. So how do they use it? So you have access for that as well. And, like, it's good when somebody that has a tool actually educates the
Yeah,
people that are using it, and I wanted to say that that's also content, like
indeed,
that's
indeed.
also creating content the right way for the right people.
Yeah, 100%, because without that, it's really hard to get a lot of other people to start trying to use it, because they'll feel that I'm not tech savvy enough to try it. But with a lot of content to help.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so one thing I'm interested in, and that's, looking at B2B companies today. Um, what are some advices that you can give them, knowing what you know and seeing, what you have seen already? What's the situation right now? What are some tips that you can give them that they can, use short term to kind of improve where they are right now with their content?
Oh, so any advice to B2B companies about improving content?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's see. This may be cliche, but I don't think it is, because I still see people not doing it. Spend time talking to your customers, and then record it while you're doing that, and then use their words in the copy that you're writing. When you're writing intros, go back and review all of the intros that you've wrote. The intro should help the reader self-qualify, meaning when they read it, it exactly identifies whatever it is they're going through when they've searched for this term. That needs to be shown in the intro. It can't just be a generic thing saying, oh, email marketing is so useful these days. No, you need to talk to people who are trying to get into email marketing and really, really get down to what it is that they're asking about in this very specific topic. Put those in your intros. Go through G2, Capterra, all the review websites, go through Slack channels, go through the online communities that your users are spending time in, and capture the words that they're using when they're talking about your product or whatever problem they have around there, and put it in a spreadsheet. Categorize it by, pain, goal, or barrier, and use their words in what you're writing. And also use that, if it inspires you, to create topics. If you can find some keywords in what they're saying as well. This is gonna make or break what you're doing. I'm so tired of seeing generic intros. Even if the rest of the content is good and useful, generic intro just makes me really upset these days.
Yeah, people drop out of reading the rest of the articles if they. Yeah, you reminded me of that. I totally forget about that topic. That's a huge one. I was, uh, my content writer might be listening to this. He knows how much I told him. We all like conversational tone, and that's okay. We need to have that in the article, but in the intro, you gotta tell me what is it there for me. Why should I read the
Yes.
rest of it?
Yes. What is the point of this? What is it? Bottom line up front, bluff. Put the bottom line up front at the top. Just say what you mean to say right at the beginning. Tell me why this is going to be interesting and what I'm going to win from it and how it relates to my situation specifically. Because that's what's going to get people to keep reading. There's just too much stuff out there to not do that.
Yeah. One more thing I'd add related to the B2B company is you don't need to go into creating new content right away. You need to first do the analysis of everything and see if you can do the content upgrade. Sometimes
Yeah.
that might be more effective than writing new things.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of content already on the page that you can just update make better, make more relevant. And maybe it's already ranking. Maybe you can make it rank a little higher.
Yeah, like those small things, they're always a good thing, to use for the
Yes.
start, and just to get over there. Because um, I'm talking here and remembering like the feedback that I got from people that were reviewing content for different B2B companies, and they were like, but I wanted to change it all. Like, and I wanted to ask you to, if you can, to kind of explain and simplify what does content upgrade means. I think that can be useful for people.
Yeah. How do you define a content upgrade?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you ask me.
Yeah.
Look, I'm defining it as, analyzing an article, knowing what's the purpose and who are we talking about, and seeing if he satisfies those things. Basically, then I would go and see if we are targeting the right keywords and everything where we are, and that's how I would approach it.
Yeah. I've also heard of content upgrades being specifically related to lead magnets. So you have a content that's about a specific topic, and then the upgrade is gated. So the upgrade is like an expansion of the content
Mm-hmm.
that's on that page. But it doesn't make sense to do that if you haven't done what you're talking about right now, making sure are we actually talking about a one specific thing here? Do we have a point to make? And is it relevant to the person that we're hoping is reading this?
Yeah, I was talking with Ognjen Bošković about, gated or ungated content. And I think what he said is something similar to what you just said, is like we should gate resources, not the content.
Yeah.
So they're reading the article and they go, okay, so these are like 10 tips of how you can create the best landing page for that specific audience. And then the resources is examples of five landing pages that give the best results.
Yeah.
Use them right now.
Yeah. There's also, I think it's Erin Balsa from the Predictive Index who's always talking about strategic
She's
gating.
gonna be here soon.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah.
Oh, cool. Great choice. Yeah, she's always talking about the strategic gating, saying if you write a white paper, for example, a research report, you can still publish it ungated, but just with the main takeaways that everybody would need to know to read it. And say, if you really want to read the whole thing, then you can gate that, but that everybody should have access to the key takeaways from it. So you can have a mix of gated and ungated.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, everything goes back to you knowing what you want to achieve with content
Yeah.
and who you're talking to, and then you can have kind of map up the journey and know what each content is doing. I mean, it's basically like it can be creating demand, doing advertising, whatever, but it's giving these people the next steps that they need to take.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Any last words? Because we are slowly getting to the end. I mean, last words for this episode, not overall.
I don't. At the beginning of the episode, you said we were going to disagree on stuff, but we didn't do that yet.
Yeah, I think we didn't like. Look, there's one thing that when I'm thinking about like creating demand and what should we focus on. Like, I don't think that we should focus on SEO, but I think like podcast is the number one thing because we can talk directly with potential customers, with targeted accounts, whatever we call them. And out of it, we can create content that we're going to distribute on social media. We can write articles, we can write interview, whatever. And then basically by doing that, we are covering YouTube SEO, we are covering Google SEO or like search engines, and then we are also covering podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, we are covering everything, but not thinking specifically about the SEO. But then, if we know that people are searching, going to get educated on Google or searching for specific terms, then yeah, SEO should be one of the things that we consider, and it should be a big one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think that podcasts are a really good channel for demand gen. I think that it's SEO is also really important investment in your future. It just depends on how you want to structure the business because everything other than SEO, well, SEO as well, you kind of have to keep doing it, but the impact goes away when you stop doing those other things versus SEO, the impact keeps getting bigger, but it's not always the channel for all of the other goals that you might have in growth.
Yeah, yeah, and look, like if you're doing this thing, podcast, social media, whatever, if people started talking about you, they will go to Google and search to find you, by the name of the
Yeah.
company or by the name of the person, and you can easily cover all those search queries with writing the right content pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, basically the full cycle. That's it.
Love it. Well, I don't have any last words. I mean, those were my last words. Thanks for having me on today. This has been a fun
Yeah, like
chat.
tell people where they can find more info about you, more
Oh,
info
sure.
about the company, and all those other stuff.
Well, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, Maeva Cifuentes. I guess my name is spelled somewhere here that they can see. Or you can
Yeah,
go to,
we're gonna leave links also in the
okay,
description. So yeah.
yeah, you can go to flyingcatmarketing.com. And I think I had also left you a link to a masterclass uh,
Mm-hmm.
that I gave about low volume keyword stacking to get SEO results faster. So that would be
Yeah,
pretty interesting for anybody who's trying to speed things up next year.
that's good. So now it's the right time to get into all
Yep.
that. Sounds good. Sounds good. Guys, what I would suggest is we were a little bit chaotic today, going back and forth in different topics and go around. But go back to the start of the episode, listen to the things, listen all the things that Maeva has to say. Um, if you have questions, stop the episode, go to LinkedIn, ask her. She's pretty responsive and answer to all kind of questions, conversations. She'll be willing to help you, and where every the one thing that I say always at the end of the episode: first, thank you for being on the show and taking time, and the second is, guys, for all of you, keep it funky. It's December, the New Year's coming, so keep it funky and take care of your content.
Keep it funky, guys. Thanks, Naranja.